An 80-year-old man named William Carter, frail and trembling, stepped into an old-fashioned cafe. His tattered coat was soaked from the rain, dripping water onto the floor. He approached the counter, his voice hoarse yet still filled with pride. "I'd like a simple sandwich, nothing fancy." The young employee behind the counter frowned at him. The other customers, dressed neatly, sipped their espressos and nibbled on croissants, completely contrasting with the old man's worn and rugged appearance. The employee smirked, then turned to whisper something to a colleague, causing a few muffled chuckles to spread. William noticed immediately they were mocking him. His face flushed with embarrassment. His fingers tightened around his old wooden cane. But after a moment, he sighed, took a step back, and prepared to leave. Just then, a voice rang out from behind. "What's going on here?" The cafe owner, a woman in her 40s with neatly tied brown hair, had just emerged from the back door. She looked around, her gaze landing on the old man, and instantly, she froze. Her eyes widened, her lips quivered as if she had just seen a ghost. "My God, is it really you?" she murmured, quickly stepping forward. The cafe fell silent. The employees exchanged puzzled glances. William frowned, studying the woman. There was something familiar about her, but he couldn't quite place it. You know me?" he asked hesitantly. The woman took a deep breath, then slowly said, "I'm Isabel. Isabel Laurent." The old man's hand, gripping his cane, froze in midair. He stared at her as if he couldn't believe his ears. "Pierre Laurent's granddaughter?" Isabel nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. A tense silence filled the air. Pierre Laurent. That name pulled William back into the past, back to Paris in 1944, when he was a young British soldier in World War II. He and Pierre had been comrades, best friends, until that fateful day when Pierre sacrificed himself to save him in the heat of battle. More than 70 years had passed, yet the memory remained as vivid as yesterday. Isabel gazed at him, her eyes filled with emotions too complex to express. Then, suddenly, she turned to her staff and ordered, "Prepare the best sandwich this cafe has for him." William opened his mouth to protest, but Isabel gently placed her hand over his trembling one. "For over 70 years, my family has been searching for you," she whispered. "Today, I finally meet the friend my grandfather always spoke of." William sat down on the old wooden chair, his hands still gripping his cane, as if afraid this was all just a dream. Isabel sat across from him, her gaze never leaving his deeply lined face. The cafe had fallen into complete silence. There were no more chuckles, no more wary glances. The other customers, though unaware of the full story, could feel the weight of the moment, the solemnity in the air. "My grandfather," Isabel began, her voice trembling slightly, always spoke of his dearest friend, a brave British soldier who fought alongside him during the darkest days in Paris. He said that if it weren't for you, he wouldn't have survived those times. William closed his eyes as memories flooded back like a tidal wave. He remembered the long nights in underground shelters, the thunderous echoes of artillery fire, and that fateful day when Pierre had pushed him out of the path of a stray bullet. "You have to live, William," Pierre had told him before closing his eyes forever. "Live for both of us." I didn't know his family still remembered me," William murmured, his voice hoarse. "I tried to find them after the war, but everything was in chaos. I thought I had failed." Isabel smiled through her tears. "My grandfather left a letter for you. He wrote it just before he sacrificed himself. Our family has kept it for all these years, hoping that one day we could give it to you." She stood up, walked into the back room, and returned with an old envelope, its yellowed paper worn by time. William's hands trembled as he took it, unfolding each crease carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter, its ink faded but still legible. "My dear William," he read aloud, his voice choked with emotion. "If you are reading this letter, it means I am no longer there to say these words to you. But I want you to know that I have no regrets. You were the best friend I ever had, and I believe that you will go on to live a meaningful life. Remember, we fought for a better future. Never lose hope." William couldn't hold back his tears. Hot tears streamed down his cheeks, falling onto the letter. Isabel placed a comforting hand over his. "My grandfather left one more thing for you," she said softly. "He wanted you to have this." She handed him a small wooden box. Inside was an antique pocket watch, its face engraved with the words, "For eternal friendship." William took the watch in his trembling hands, his heart overflowing with emotion. He remembered the day Pierre had shown it to him, saying it was his most treasured possession. "If I'm not here anymore," Pierre had said, "keep this as a reminder of our friendship." The cafe remained silent, the weight of the moment settling over everyone. The young employees, who had once mocked the old man, now lowered their heads in shame. Isabel rose to her feet, her voice firm and unwavering. "From this day forward, Mr. William will be an honored guest in this cafe. Whenever he visits, treat him with the respect he deserves." William looked at her, gratitude filling his heart. "Thank you, Isabel. Thank you for keeping Pierre's memory alive." She smiled, squeezing his hand. "No, thank you. For being the friend my grandfather was always proud of." William clutched the pocket watch tightly, feeling as if Pierre's warmth still lingered, reaching across the years. But when he turned it over, something strange caught his eye, a faintly engraved message, barely visible under the dim light. "Find the blue notebook." His heart pounded. What was this? A message from Pierre? Isabel saw it too, her eyes widening in surprise. "The blue notebook?" she murmured. "My family has never mentioned it." A strange feeling crept over William. Could Pierre have left something important behind? He looked up, his voice unsteady. "Do you know if any of your grandfather's belongings are still kept somewhere?" Isabel nodded. "Some things are still stored in our family's attic. If you like, we can go check." Without hesitation, they left the cafe and made their way to Isabel's old family home. The house sat nestled between the aged streets of Paris, its walls bearing the marks of time. Isabel led William up to a small attic room, where wooden crates and iron chests were stacked high. After rummaging through the clutter, Isabel finally found an old wooden box. On its lid was an engraving that William recognized instantly, the emblem of the military unit he and Pierre had once belonged to. His heart pounded as he carefully lifted the lid. Inside, neatly placed among old letters and military medals, was a tattered blue notebook. William carefully opened the first page. Pierre's handwriting appeared before his eyes, bold, hurried strokes. "If someone finds this notebook, it means I am no longer here. But there is a truth that cannot remain buried forever." William's breath caught in his throat. What truth? He flipped through the pages quickly, scanning the war-torn memories recorded within. But then one passage made him stop cold. June 17th, 1944. "I have discovered something terrible. A high-ranking officer in our own army has betrayed us. He sold information to the enemy, leading hundreds of our men into an ambush. I cannot believe it. It was someone we trusted. If anyone reads this, find out the truth. His name is..." But the rest of the page had been torn away. A heavy silence filled the attic. Isabel looked at William, her voice unsteady. "Who do you think it could be?" William closed his eyes, his mind swirling with old memories. A traitor among them? Who could have done such a thing? And why was the most crucial part of the page missing? "We have to uncover the truth," he murmured. "Pierre risked everything to write this down. We can't let it be forgotten." Isabel swallowed hard. But what if that man is still alive? Or if his descendants don't want the truth to come out? A cold wind swept through the window. Outside, a black car pulled up to the curb. A shadowy figure inside seemed to be watching them. Both William and Isabel sensed something was wrong. They exchanged uneasy glances, an unspoken understanding passing between them. It felt as if someone was tracking their movements. A creeping unease settled over William. Could it be that someone already knew they were searching for the blue notebook? "We need to be careful," William murmured, his voice hoarse. "We might be uncovering a dangerous secret." Isabel nodded, quickly shutting the notebook and slipping it into a cloth bag. "We should leave. I know a safe place." Without wasting another second, they hurried out of the room, descending the narrow staircase and slipping through the back door. Outside, the rain poured heavily, casting a misty veil over the dimly lit streets. They moved swiftly through the alleyways, keeping as much distance as possible from the suspicious black car. After walking for some time, they arrived at a small house tucked away in a dead-end street. Isabel unlocked the door and ushered William inside. The house was dark, but she quickly switched on the lights and locked the door behind them. "This belongs to a close friend," Isabel explained. "She's away on a business trip, so we can stay here for now." William nodded, placing the cloth bag containing the blue notebook on the table. "We need to dig deeper into what Pierre wrote. There might be more clues hidden in this notebook." They sat down and carefully turned each page. Pierre's handwriting unfolded before them, recounting the brutal days of war. But then, one particular entry caught their attention. June 23rd, 1944. "I have found the evidence, a letter written by the traitor himself. He contacted the enemy, exchanging information about our operations. I couldn't believe my eyes, but I knew what I had to do. I will keep this letter as proof, and if I don't survive, find it in. The last line was smudged, as if Pierre had written it in a hurry. The letter, Isabel gasped. It might still be out there somewhere. William frowned. But where? Pierre didn't have time to write the full location. They continued flipping through the pages, hoping for another clue. But before they could find anything else, a loud noise shattered the silence. A heavy thud against the door. Both of them froze and turned toward the sound. The door shook violently, as if someone was trying to force their way in. Someone's trying to break in, Isabel whispered, her voice tense with fear. William swiftly tucked the blue notebook back into the bag and stood up. We need to get out of here. Now! They rushed toward the back, searching for an escape route. But as soon as they opened the rear door, a tall figure blocked their way. His face was obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, but his cold, piercing gaze made them instinctively step back. Hand over the notebook, he ordered, his deep voice laced with menace. William clutched the cloth bag tighter, taking a cautious step backward. Who are you? Why do you want the notebook? The man didn't answer. Instead, he moved closer. Isabel glanced around, searching for something, anything, to use as a weapon. Her eyes landed on a table lamp, and she grabbed it, ready to throw. Stay back, she warned, her voice shaking but firm. The stranger smirked, then suddenly lunged at them. William tried to dodge, but age had robbed him of his former agility. The man seized the bag, and they struggled for control. Let go, he snarled. But just then, the sharp wail of a police siren echoed in the distance. The attacker stiffened, his eyes flickering with frustration. With one last glare at William and Isabel, he released his grip and fled into the night. Both of them exhaled in relief, but they knew they had little time to recover. Their pursuer wasn't going to give up so easily. We need to learn more about the letter Pierre mentioned, William said, his voice resolute. It could be the key to exposing the truth. Isabel nodded. But what do we do next? We don't even know where to start looking. William looked down at the blue notebook, his eyes filled with thought. Maybe Pierre left another clue among his belongings. We need to go back to your family's house and search more carefully. They decided to wait a while to make sure the mysterious man was gone, then quietly left the house. As they walked, William felt a strong determination building inside him. No matter how dangerous it became, he would not let the truth be buried. When they returned to Isabel's family home, they began searching more thoroughly. In a dark corner of the storage room, William discovered a small iron box, tightly locked. This could be where Pierre kept the letter, he said, hope flickering in his voice. Isabel found an old key in another box, and when they opened the iron container, an aged envelope lay inside. On it, in Pierre's handwriting, were the words, "For those who seek the truth." William opened the letter, reading each line carefully. What they found left both him and Isabel stunned. A dark truth about a long-buried conspiracy involving powerful figures they never would have suspected. We have to expose this, Isabel said, her voice resolute. But we need to be careful. The people involved won't let the truth come to light so easily. William nodded, his gaze steady and determined. Pierre trusted us. We can't let him down. After reading Pierre's letter, William and Isabel realized they were holding a secret that could shake all of Paris. The letter revealed that the traitor was not just a high-ranking officer in the military, but had also become a powerful political figure after the war. Pierre had gathered evidence not only of his betrayal, but also of a vast network of corruption and efforts to cover up war crimes. We have to expose this, Isabel said, her voice filled with determination. But how do we make sure the people involved can't stop us? William thought for a moment before speaking slowly. Pierre once mentioned a trusted friend in journalism. If we can find that person, maybe they can help us. They decided to search the blue notebook for clues. After combing through the pages, they found a name, Jacques Moreau, a well-known journalist who had exposed political scandals in the 1950s. But Jacques had passed away years ago. However, his son, Luc Moreau, was now working for a major newspaper in Paris. We need to find Luc, Isabel said. But how do we reach him without being followed? William nodded. We have to be extremely careful. The people watching us won't give up so easily. The two decided to contact Luc through a secure channel. Isabel sent an encrypted message to his email, requesting a meeting at a safe location. Luc agreed, and they arranged to meet at a small cafe in Montmartre, a quiet place with few passersby. When they arrived, Luc was already waiting. He was a middle-aged man with a stern face and sharp eyes. After listening to William and Isabel's story, he nodded. I remember my father mentioning Pierre Laurent. He was a brave man. If what you're saying is true, I'll help you expose it. But just then, a strange noise came from behind them. A group of men dressed in black, wearing dark sunglasses, entered the cafe. They said nothing, only casting cold, unwavering gazes toward William, Isabel, and Luke. We need to leave. Right now, Luke whispered, his voice tense. The three of them stood up, trying to remain calm as they moved toward the back exit. But the men had already blocked their path. One of them spoke, his voice chillingly cold. Hand over the notebook and the letter, or you'll regret it. William tightened his grip on the cloth bag, his eyes filled with determination. We won't let you bury the truth. The men said nothing more, only stepping closer. Luke quickly pulled out his phone, pressing the emergency call button. But before he could do anything, a loud explosion erupted from the front door. Smoke filled the room, and in the chaos, William, Isabel, and Luke seized the opportunity to escape. The three of them dashed through the narrow alleys of Montmartre, the sound of footsteps closing in behind them. Luke led them toward an old building, knowing there was an emergency exit. But as they climbed the stairs, another group was already waiting on the second floor. There's no way out. One of them sneered. Hand over what you have, and we'll let you go. William glanced around, searching for an escape. Suddenly, he remembered a detail from the blue notebook. Pierre had once mentioned a hidden tunnel leading out of this area. Follow me, he shouted, pulling Isabel and Luke toward a small room. Inside, they found a concealed door behind an old rug. As they opened it, a dark tunnel appeared before them. Without hesitation, they rushed inside, slamming the door shut behind them. The tunnel led them to an underground chamber, a hideout Pierre had once used during the war. There, they discovered another iron box. Inside, they found classified documents and a more detailed journal exposing the traitor. This is it, William exhaled in relief. Pierre left everything here. Luke quickly sifted through the documents, his eyes lighting up. With this, we can bring down an entire network of corruption. But we need to act fast. Isabel nodded. We must publish it immediately. But how do we ensure our safety? Luke thought for a moment before saying, I have a friend in the investigative agency. He will help us. As they emerged from the tunnel, the men in sunglasses were already waiting. But this time, they were not alone. Luke had called his contact, and a special task force arrived just in time. A tense confrontation unfolded, but in the end, their pursuers were arrested. With Luke's help and the authorities involved, the classified documents were made public. The truth about the traitor and the corrupt network sent shockwaves across France. Those responsible were brought to justice, and the honor of Pierre and the fallen soldiers was restored. At a memorial for Pierre and the soldiers who had perished, William stood before the gathered crowd, his voice filled with emotion. Pierre gave his life to protect the truth. Today, we have fulfilled our promise to him. Isabel stood beside him, gripping his hand, and we will never forget what they did. After fulfilling Pierre's final wish, William and Isabel visited the grave of their fallen friend. William placed the blue notebook and the letter beside it, a final tribute to Pierre's courage. The rain continued to fall over the streets of Paris, but in their hearts, the light of truth and bravery had triumphed over the darkness. Tell me what you're thinking about the stories. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave your like.